Alright. Oh, I forgot to get a hammer. Dude. Alright. Me and Genuine Hickory. Oh, ready to go. I tell you, I think the challenge of the foil ball challenge is this gets boring. Hello, Chardon. Chicago says hello. It is also gloomy and rainy here, although not snowing today, which is nice. Whew. All right. So, I did find the little stand that I want to put this on, so that's kind of cute. This originally held a little test tube, and you could put like a single flower in it. It was this cute little thing, and it did not survive the most recent move. Or rather, the test tube didn't, but I didn't want to get rid of this nice little plastic base, and lo, it just, holds my ball. So. Genuine Hickory would be a great bluegrass group, I think. Alright, so, put that to the side. So I looked up more information about how to do this, because the original sources I was using for this didn't seem to cover everything that I needed. So for anybody who didn't see this, I will be hammering it for a little bit longer, because I think it needs a little bit more, and then sanding it. And I think the sanding is going to get rid of all these little flaky edges that I've been kind of concerned about. So I think I'm just going to lose that foil, which is kind of too bad. But apparently there's correct wrapping techniques. Not that anybody showed that in any of the videos I saw, but these dangly edges seem to be more of my problem than everybody else's. So, okay. Alright, so I'm no reason to wait. I'm just going to start whacking this thing and be done with the loud rhythmic part, hopefully sooner rather than later. Something I'm trying not to do is land edge on with the hammer, because it leaves little, like, fingernail-looking divots. I really want it smooth. Some areas look way better than others. Like, I don't know how well you guys can see. There's some big cracks, like, right along here. Whereas, like, this side doesn't have them. Pseudonine, I should tell the moderator that you're being weird. Actually, loud rhythmic part is a techno remix. Or dubstep. So, it's interesting, like, this, every whack of the hammer is definitely still deforming it, but is it compacting it? That I don't know, you know. I mean, infinitesimally, yes, but... P.S. I don't think I'm going to be doing this for an entire hour. It was actually kind of satisfying and fun when it was the really big smooshy foil ball. But it is starting to feel like work. So... I'm glad that my hammering was rhythmic enough to line up with a song. That's pretty funny. I'm trying to be better than last time and like changing my position a lot. I didn't have as much of a like negative consequence from last time as I thought I might, which was nice. But yeah, look at these flaky edges, almost seem to be sticking up more. You know, I'm gonna trim them off. Let's because I don't see any way that these are going to like magically just mold into everything else. So maybe these just scissors. Yeah. This is just foil. Alright, let's see if that helps at all. Would they sand off? I think so. I think that those edges will sand off, but I might as well get the really big overhang off if it was sticking up. So it's just a little less sanding I have to do. But yeah, I think those parts will sand off. Oh, I forgot to take a measurement when I started this. We were at what? 45? Cannot see your hammering. Let me... There we go. Thank you for the feedback. So let's see. Are we changing at all? No. We're still at 45. So, there. But I did get a measurement, so we have that. I'd say, okay, it's 110. If by 115 I don't have any noticeable real differences, I think I might call the hammering part. I have to sand with water, so not explicitly underwater, but the sandpaper needs to be wet. I'll constantly be dunking it. So, yeah, how interesting, right? I wonder if you can actually overdo it. Oh, the burrito's asleep. I mean, this is apparently primo toddler stuff. He finds watching me hammer foil to be very relaxing. I do feel like the sound has changed. It's gone up and become another sharper tone. Although it might just have to do with where I am on my work surface. So, never mind. Whew. Yeah, I don't know. That'd be kind of fun to have an excuse to snorkel, but probably can't do that in my workshop. Oh, yeah, no, now I really get why this is a challenge, because this is getting boring. And I have to imagine that the sanding part is going to be also exquisitely boring. But that's just sanding. Like, that doesn't... Sanding is always kind of boring. But you get to see the result, it matters, so... Whew. Haha, I didn't drop it. Oh, not here. Name a favorite species. Let's see. Oh, what's the exact... There's a Eurasian owl. I think it might be the Eurasian eagle owl is the common name. Their scientific name is Bubo bubo. It just tickles me. And if anybody ever watched, I think it's the really old stop motion Jason and the Argonauts. There's a mechanical owl, like a stop motion mechanical owl in the movie named Bubo, and is named after the scientific name. So yeah, I like that species name. I think that's really good. Alright, that's been 5 more minutes of hammering. Let's check in. Are we compacting at all anymore? Well, let's see. From that angle, is that my widest? No, I think my widest is over here. Oh, okay, we went down a millimeter. We're now at 44. Okay, then I'm going to give another 10 minutes. Let's keep hammering until we're not getting any result. But it is still compacting. And again, I'm doing this for a maximum of an hour. We're 15 minutes in. At maximum, I'm doing this for 45 more minutes before moving on to the next step. Because, whacking a ball of foil for this long is somewhat tedious. But it's nice that it's still doing something. So I noticed the sound changed when I was over on the edge of my work surface like I am. And I think it's actually better. Ooh. Keyboard, you need to know. I think, yeah, so the leg of my stool are here, and so that's going to be the strongest point to hit. If I'm in the middle, it's suspended wood, and I think it's actually making something of a difference for smacking into this guy, so that's kind of cool. Let's straighten that out a little. Whew. Yep, poofed her. Alright, and for anybody who is just come on to watch this foil ball hammering, this ball of foil started out at 73 millimeters in diameter. We're down to 43. So, quick visual on that. Ooh, do we go down? Wow, it's really compacting. No, wait. Okay, no, we're at 44, sorry. So we're at 44 right now. 73 is there. So that's how much this ball has compacted. So for anybody who is just tuning in or wants the update, made quite a difference hammering this guy down. And it's my excuse for break, and now I'm going to go back to it. You guys might notice I always have to find the widest part. It's not a perfect sphere. I have a bit of an equator where I'm widest away from the weak spot. So I have this weak area where I've got the flaky edges, and so this area tends to be wider because I keep over focusing on this, so I have to be better about hammering the other sides. Oh, it is already exquisitely shiny. Like, it's a very satisfying, if somewhat strange project. Let me move back a little bit. Try. On some of the YouTube videos I watched of this, people started off with a hammer like this to pound away at the ball. I loved that rawhide mallet. I don't think I would have changed that. So if you don't have a rawhide mallet, according to the interwebs, you can just use a regular hammer. But if you can get one, they're really nice. Or a rubber mallet, you know, something big and small, soft. Okay, I'm going to 1:25 p.m. and then we'll get another measurement. 1:25 Central Time. Was I saving this ball of foil from when I was a kid because I knew about the challenge? Yes. So as a kid, I obviously didn't know about it, but when you first contacted me and said that you had found this in my stuff, this is exactly what I wanted to do with it. So, yes, I literally, most recently, was saving this to whack it with a hammer a lot. Because I make weird life choices. So, yeah. Because the foil ball challenge, when I first heard about it, sparked all of my interest. So it was something that you could do with stuff that you could easily acquire. It was shiny, shiny, shiny. And it's just a process. I didn't need to have expertise. I didn't, whatever. And I really like projects like that. And so when I first saw this a couple years ago, I was like, oh, I really want to do that sometime. Why did I save the foil when I was little? Yeah, so for anybody who hasn't gotten the update, this foil ball is between 20 and 30 years old. I created it from Halloween candy, Christmas candy, anything that, Hershey's Kisses, anything that was wrapped in foil, until it got to be so big at, again, 73 millimeters, that I could no longer put candy wrappers on it, except for, like, the biggest of big chocolate Easter bunnies and things like that. And so I did that as a kid just because I liked collecting things. And this'll date me for anybody who doesn't know. Pee Wee Herman in Pee Wee's Playhouse had a foil ball, and the gimmick was it would roll onto screen, and it was clearly taller than he was, and it would roll forward, and he would just stick the foil to it, and it would stick, and then he'd roll it away. And so, like, kids who were visiting the show would come and give him a piece of foil. And I was like, that's cool. And so then my heart was broken because Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse lied to me, and you can't actually just stick the foil to it. It needs to wrap around it to stay on without, presumably, adhesives and or magic. And so it hit this limit. And even on Pee Wee's Playhouse, they gave up on the foil ball before the end of the show and moved to having a rubber band ball. And so I also have made a rubber band ball, but here's the other problem. Rubber band balls also have a limit of how big they can get based on the rubber bands that you might find. Also, rubber bands go bad, which is a real bummer, and so they'll dry rot and snap, and so my rubber band ball just kind of started to fall apart. So maybe just don't do everything you see on a kid's show. Meh. But yeah, DL, glue is obviously what Pee Wee's Playhouse did. Glue or magic. But yeah, so this is pure. The only additional things that may be in here are molecules of chocolate. And I suppose other candies like caramel, but probably just mostly chocolate. So, okay, well, I'm going to hammer this for another minute, and then we'll get another measurement. Alright. Quick measurement. That looks like the highest point. There. Okay, I'm not really compacting anymore. Okay, so DL, you said, so how you started the year and what are you doing now perfectly describes 2020. Yeah, more or less. Find your metaphor. Alright, so there's a couple of bumps I'm going to hit, but I think I'm wrapping up. I don't think I'm going to make it a full hour on hitting this because I'm not getting a lot of change anymore, and I want to spend time on the polishing. So let's just try to find some of the weird high points that I can see. Because this is never going to be totally round. I'm not going to put it on like a rotor and make it totally spherical. What would I use to write on slate? I mean, chalk seems like the obvious thing. Will this be mounted next to the T-Rex? No, because this I can keep down where my cats get it, and mostly just get to watch them play with a ball. The T-Rex has to go really high up. But yeah, to write on slate, I mean, assuming it's like Ohio slate, that's that really dark gray, chalk would probably be great. Or paint, some sort of thick acrylic paint that would sit on top of it would work. You could use pencil, but it would kind of disappear. Needs to be permanent. Can I ask what your project is? Is there a succinct way to describe that? Because for slate, I mean, it's a stone, but it's a pretty porous, absorbent stone. So pretty much any paint that could sink in a little bit would potentially be pretty okay, I think. Heck, permanent marker might actually work if you want to just take it the simple route. But I will end that with saying I have never attempted to draw on slate in a permanent sense. Yeah, like paint pens might work. Just not washable. Like if it's going to be outside, you have to make sure it's not washable. For like a classy house sign or something. Aw. Oh, I think I can picture that. Okay, so you have a piece of slate that has a poem on it, and after 30 plus years, the poem is fading. Yeah, I mean, most pigments will do something like that. You can also, this is dicey, but you could also try cleaning around it. The pigments are definitely faded, but you might be able to use like a Q-tip dipped in just soapy water or, maybe rubbing alcohol to, like, lift grime away from around it so it shows up. Or even off top of it, although you have to be careful. But, yeah, I think paint, like, probably just a basic acrylic paint that you could then put, like, a varnish coat on. And if it already had a varnish layer, actually this is something to keep in mind. Most varnishes get funky after a couple decades. They turn yellow, and sometimes they even get sticky. And so if you could remove the varnish without removing the underlayer, then you might be able to brighten it up, because just taking the varnish off will make it look better, but, but yeah, that one's tough. Restoration work is hard, I think let me full stop on that. Restoration work is really hard. So you have something that's kind of a neat piece that you want to keep in the spirit, at least, of what it was, and you want it to be legible and nice. That's hard. Because I feel like you're gonna have to take, if it was varnish, the varnish is actually one of the things that's working against you here. Varnish is great for protecting, all sorts of paintings and finished works, and then, giving it that crisp shine, but most varnish gets funky after not too long. So even when they do, art restoration in, like, museums, a lot of it's taking the old varnish off and putting on new varnish. So, like, a Picasso or whatever, they actually have to strip the old varnish off. Yeah, DL has a good point where you won't be able to match the old color. So you basically have to paint all the letters individually, which could be kind of nice. That could be a fun project. And that's a lot of art restoration, too, is, like, part of restoring a classic, important piece in an art museum is literally painting over parts of it, which seems like, what? But that's how you can bring the artist's vision back out. So I'd say before you do anything, get a lot of really well-lit, very crisp, very close-up photographs, so you have all of the reference material in the world. So if something goes real wrong, you have a backup. That's the best I got. Because I think painting on slate, because even right now, if you don't remove the varnish, then you're actually painting on varnish, which is a whole different world. So Yeah, that's a tough project. Varnish is a real bugger, especially because a lot of the things that take up varnish will take up certain types of paints, and you don't know what the paint was underneath there. And so if they use just a basic, craft acrylic that's water soluble, it'll probably come right up with whatever you use to get the varnish off. But if it was like an oil paint, you're probably okay. But yeah, restoration work is hard. So I'm gonna say I have no really solid good advice other than if you try anything, take just a ton of really, really crisp, clear, close-up reference photos. So, that's tough. Alright. I don't know, I think this bugger's done. It looks real good. We've been going at it for half an hour, along with a lot of chatting. And I got another millimeter out of it, which I'm pretty happy about, but if we're sitting here at 74... I'm sorry, 44, 74. Maybe. Actually, this... Oh, wait, that's probably not the widest point. Yeah, I'm still sitting at 44 at my widest angle. So I'm going to whack it just a few more times, but then I think I shall whack no more. Yeah, so it's definitely not perfectly spherical, but you said it was faded and hard to read, and two wonderful people helped you with the hard to read parts. You typed the poem and are attaching it to the back. Oh, that's wonderful. No, you're not sidetracking. That's great. Yeah, and that's the sort of preservation you can do. Sometimes beautiful art pieces don't have longevity, and it's the ephemeral nature of them is actually kind of part of their beauty. So now that you have the poem, you definitely won't lose it, and you've gotten to still experience it. That's great. And if you are able to somehow restore it or kind of revivify it, that would be magical as well. So you're still appreciating that art piece for what it is, and I think that's really great. So, all right. So, okay, my current challenge is I have to figure out how to make sure that you guys can see whatever I'm doing for this next bit. So I'm going to move these guys. And I have this here plastic bin. That's not the worst, I think. So you guys can see me through the plastic. Because I could try to get the camera above it, but here, let me try a different camera view. Tell me guys what you think. So right now I've got this, which I think is not bad. It's foggy, but it's not bad. Or I can try... Let's see. Like that? This is a little fuzzy. This camera doesn't do very well with distance. But what do you guys think? Option 1 or option 2 for camera angles for this next bit? Alright, I have one vote for option 1. Anybody else have thoughts or feelings on the visuals here? Actually, while we're thinking about that, I am going to run out and get some water to put in this. So I can do flexible and... Alright, I'll be right back. I'm going to put some water in here. Alright, so I got that, and I'm going to move the camera back down to Position 1. Alright, so yeah, you guys can see me. This is a little foggy down here, but you can see what's going on. I think I'm gonna wear gloves for this. Okay. And now we get to bust open the ginormous pack of wet, dry sandpaper that I bought just for this project. So for anybody who doesn't know, sandpaper comes in a variety of grits, and so the lowest grit, or the roughest grit, I guess, is 400 in this pack, and the highest grit, which I don't know if I've ever actually played with before, is 3,000. So that's nuts. Oh, actually, I just want to touch that. Oh, yeah. Like, 3,000 grit sandpaper you could, like, have on an object you were interacting with, and it probably wouldn't even bother you. Alright. Thank you for the photo of the sleeping burrito. It's very cute. So this is like 8 different weights of grit. I'm not going to do every single one of them. I have other things to do in my life ever. So I will start with 400. Might as well start with the roughest grit, which is still pretty soft, but it's metal grit. Since I'm doing this in water, I'm not going to use any breathing protection because it shouldn't be throwing up particulate. But a lot of times if you're sanding, having face covers is good. But for right now, I'm not going to worry about that. So, there's this guy in the water, which, man, that feels weird. Like, putting sandpaper and the foil ball in the water just doesn't seem like it's the right course of action, except apparently that's what I'm supposed to do. So... Alright, so now this is going to be the deal for some time. Well, it's already doing something. Let's see, you can kind of see there, that black ooze. That's metal that's been coming off, so that's cool. The internet seemed to have different opinions about how many different grits of sandpaper I have to go through with this. I'm thinking I'm going to do 4. Let's see. When you watch, like, really pro people, doing various forms of metalworking, they always use some sort of mechanical tool with a wheel that spins that'll do the sanding for them. Yeah. You can see that being of benefit at this step. Is this easier than hammering? Yeah. Yeah, this is definitely simpler. And it has a delightfully immediate effect, which is pretty cool. Like, I can really tell it's doing something. So that's kind of cool. But then again, the hammering did that too, right when I started. So. Ooh, I do appreciate good burly forearms. And forearms specifically, so I can get the Popeye look. That's great. Love it. Yeah, okay, so let me... I don't know if I can find the focus here, but it's definitely changing. So it is getting shinier, it is roughing down the high points, so I can see all the divots that are so deep it can't quite reach it yet. but that is changing. So that's cool. Yeah, so unfortunately my camera moved a little bit, now my hands are wet, so I'll just have to be slightly out of frame. So I'm not noticing a huge amount of change by the big cracks, or the edges. You know, I had the thought, is it bad that there's water inside the ball? You know, so if it percolates down through those cracks, is that going to be an issue? And I think kind of like the reason you use aluminum foil around your food is it doesn't particularly rust. It just turns a little gray. So I don't think it's going to cause a problem. Like if you have iron that's rusting, the rust will actually travel and infect other areas, so you don't want rust if you can help it. Ooh, that reminds me of Pyrites disease. People outside of museums usually haven't heard of this, but Pyrites disease is not a disease. It is not a bacteria. It's a chemical reaction caused by stone that contains often iron pyrite, although I think it can be any ferrous stone. And a chemical reaction will occur where it starts to fall apart. It basically changes the structure of the rock and it crumbles. And it's just this degenerative process. It'll just keep going. And so if you have the most magnificent fossil in the entire world and it is touched by another object that has Pyrites disease, the chemical reaction will then spread to that fossil and potentially cause it to just crumble into nothing. And it's real sad. So there are like progressive metal and stone syndromes. Again, not a disease in the bacteria sense. Yeah, Google Pyrites disease. It's bonkers, and it's like you say Pyrites disease, and archivists just shudder. You know, if you want to tell a spooky story around a campfire full of archivists, you talk about Pyrites disease. And it takes years. It takes years and years and years for it to progress. But a lot of times you don't necessarily open any specific drawer of specimens for years and years and years. So, yeah. Nightmare. Archivist nightmare. Like saying Mufasa to hyenas. I love it. My favorite oxidizing metal, because I have that, is copper verdigris. And so you know how copper turns green? You know, if you've seen copper roofs, they're actually like a beautiful aqua green. Verdigris up close can look like feathers. It's lovely. You know, it has this really feathery, curlicue, beautiful look to it. And it's a real bummer if someone was pinning insects with copper pins and then it developed verdigris. So you have these insects that look like they have like seaweed or, you know, some sort of sea creature growing out of their backs. Verdigris is lovely. But also a super bummer if you're an archivist. I think verdigris also just has a nice name. It's spelled verdigris. So if anybody wants to look it up, it ends with gris, not E. This is interesting. So this is definitely doing something. trying to find the right... There, that's kind of a good focal distance. Like, it's definitely smoothing it. It's, it's having a really profound effect. This is pretty cool. The cracks are still there. I haven't really noticed any hugely substantial change with those, so you can see them right there. But it's overall, it is really smoothing it, so that's kind of cool. It's pretty. I like this. This is a weird project, but there you go. Foil ball challenge. Actually, kind of cool. So the foil ball is covered in all these little divots. The surface of it kind of looked like the surface of the moon. You know, my hammer was so big I couldn't... The divots were smaller than the hammer marks, but there's still like lots and lots of little divots. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep filing it down until I don't really notice those, I think. Try to get the really high points down. But... unsurprisingly, it's starting to look like brushed metal, because it's brushed metal. So. Come here for the magnificent revelations. Deep, deep wisdom. It's really cool. Use the other side of my... Oh, yeah. Ooh, I can tell I was overdoing the other side. Needed some fresh sandpaper. So I am planning on streaming on Halloween. I'll be doing my taxidermy stream. However, I've been talking a big talk about doing face makeup, and I don't know, I might back out on that. What do you think about doing taxidermy in a mask? Is that more creepy? Like, I got a couple good ones, so... of my many and myriad skills, makeup has never really been one. But alright. Taxidermy and a mask. Might do. I'll play. I mean, if I feel inspired, if it looks like it's gonna go well, I might do the face makeup. But we'll see. I am participating in trick-or-treating with a friend. Oh my god. How old is she? 3? She's not 5. Maybe she's 5? I think she might be 5. God, this child is huge at this point. She won't get to go house to house trick-or-treating, and so they're planning on calling friends and having us answer, and she can do trick-or-treat, and we can ooh and ah about her costume. So I do need something for that. That's very important. But be my usual creative self. Is that really that scary? I don't know, man. But thank you. I don't know. I haven't really asked my significant other to try that. Probably. They are better at a lot of that stuff than me. Luckily, if I do go for the skull makeup, one of the reasons I chose it is it's a nice, straightforward thing. I'm not doing like a beautiful Mexican sugar skull design or something. It's just a skull. So what I'm trying to figure out is if I should focus on the cracks and get those really, really worn down or not worry about it. A growing part of me says don't worry about it, but, you know. It is looking really good, though. Like, every step of this is actually pretty satisfying, if kind of a slog. So. Wow, yeah. What a cool thing. Like, it's really shiny. It's really impressive. And I don't know how well you guys can see it on the feed, but there is just... Oh yeah, you can kind of see it. There's just the slightest bit of red left. So you can still see one of the original candy wrappers in the middle of that crack. Just a bit. So the grit hasn't quite reached down that far, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so you can see the cracks, but if I go to the other areas, like, look at that shine. That's... It's doing the thing. It's looking pretty cool, actually. So how's the soundscape for you guys? Is this better than the hammering? Do you miss the hammering? Is it easier to hear me? Because, I mean, if you want, I can just start hitting a brick or something with a hammer for future feeds. I gotta say, I don't really miss the hammering. But... Super nice. Cool. Let's go for that ASMR. Does anybody remember what ASMR stands for? I know the acronym and I know what it means, but I don't recall. Probably acoustic. Yeah. Oh, autonomous sensory meridian response. Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that one. Alright. Sensory makes a lot of sense. I might have guessed sensory for the S. Thank you for looking it up. I mean, you guys are sitting in front of computers and tablets. Just look it up. The entire, knowledge of the human race is online. Might as well use it. Har har har, pseudonym. But do you remember what AC/DC stands for? Because that is another common acronym. Well, common. It's an acronym that means a thing. Because acronyms usually don't. What? Anyway. Words. That has to do with electricity. So AC/DC is, Oh, I set myself up for this. Something current and direct current. That's why there's a slash. It's AC slash DC. Oh, I forget what the A stands for. Yes, AC/DC is a band, but the band is named after the electrical currents. Alternating, thank you. Alternating versus direct. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay, so this is great. So I've been chatting with you guys about various acronyms and electricity and filing away, and wow, I go back and look at this and it looks really different. So hold on, let me... Okay, so I'm going to show you guys where those cracks were and you're going to freak out because it looks so different. Like, you can still see them, but they're so far gone. Like, that looks so smooth compared to where it was. I am so happy. Alright, not here. Enjoy your meeting. I hope it is productive. We'll see you around. Don't Wake the Burrito. Don't Wake the Burrito is clearly a Milton Bradley board game. Or I suppose an indie board game. What I'm saying is I would play a game called Don't Wake the Burrito. But I like games, so that's not really definitive. Now I'm looking at... So next to me over here is all my board games. I'm trying to think of which one has the weirdest name. I mean, there's a couple of, like, practically unpronounceable names, so we have one called Yinch, so that's pretty good. But Order of the Stick is pretty good. Yeah, a lot of them have very straightforward names, actually. I don't have a lot of the silly ones. Sushi Roll, although that's not, again, that's not really funny, that's mostly descriptive. Jun King. Jun King is a contraction of junk and king, so, and you're junking it, blah blah blah, so that one's sort of silly. Awful Green Things from Outer Space, that's a good name. But nothing's quite as good as Don't Wake the Burrito, so... Yeah. That's what my board game collection is missing, is things with really whimsical names. There is a game, it's not a board game, I'm not really sure how to describe it, called Happy Salmon, which I can't stand, but is at every, like, gathering I go to anymore. Well, I'm sorry, that I went to last year. But Happy Salmon, I think, is dice, actually. And you do the things the dice say, and it's absolutely... I have no good way of explaining it. I don't know. Happy Salmon. There's a weird one. Okay, I'm gonna go a little longer at this. Actually, I think I need a new piece. I'm gonna get a new piece of this same grit, but this is... I mean, that's looking really, really, really good. So let's freshen this up. New piece. Oh, yeah. That made a difference. Because I want all those little pits to disappear before I change grit. If I can. I may get bored. But, you know, gotta try. You know, I think there was a Milton Bradley game, or is a Milton Bradley game, called, like, Don't Wake Daddy. I don't believe I ever played it, though. Yeah, now I'm just thinking about all my board games. Haven't really been playing a lot of them. You know, really miss them. We'll get back to that someday. I have done a little bit of Tabletop Simulator, which is pretty good. So, if anybody's absolutely jonesing to play a board game, you can play board games online. But, ooh, Don't Wake the Dragon. That sounds like a good one. Yeah, like, Don't Wake the whatever is a good premise for any sort of, like, challenge. So, Don't Wake the Dragon sounds like a really good game. I don't know if it is, but it's a solid premise. So. I still can't get over how well this is working. Who knew? Aluminum foil. It's actually pretty great. Also, I am glad I'm wearing the gloves. This is a bit dirty and grode. Oh, okay. I found one more area, but I'm wrapping up. I'm almost done with this level of grit. I think when I'm ready to change grits, I'm going to take a quick 5-minute break. But I'm really happy with where this is going, so this continues to be actually pretty impressive. What a weird thing. Japanese foil ball challenge, who knew? Actually, lots of people. But, you know. Alright. Give us just a minute more, but I'm pretty much there. I can tell that the foil, or I'm sorry, the sandpaper has actually reached everything at this point. I've filed it down enough that the really high peaks are gone. And I'm not going to try and get into every crack, like, I got other things to do in my day. But, actually I really don't, but, you know. And unsurprisingly, my water is getting pretty gross at this point, as I fill it with very fine shavings of aluminum and sandpaper grit. I don't think I'll bother changing the water unless it's actually, like, really bad, since I'm not cleaning it. At least not until, like, the polishing part. This is really good. Okay, so let me get that out of there. Give that a rinse. Show you folks. So yeah, that's real shiny, and that's just with the lowest grit sandpaper. So I have only just begun. I do have polish as well. So I'm gonna take, wow. Oh, okay, this is cool. You guys can see just a little bit here. There's some red dots. Trying to find the focus on that. I think I've actually rubbed through a top layer of foil to the red colored foil beneath. So it is actually staying bound up, even if I'm rubbing through layers, which is kind of what I hoped would happen, but I didn't know. So it might be like a jawbreaker. Like maybe if I file down far enough, I'll get interesting colors. It seems to be like heading in that direction. All right. Oof. I am going to take a quick break because that's a lot of leaning and sanding. I'm going to walk around for a second and be right back. So you guys hang out. I'll be back in like 2 minutes. Okay, I'm back. Thank you for letting me go take a break. Stretch it out. Because again, I live a pretty sedentary lifestyle. And this is remarkably effortful. Wouldn't say hard, I think that's a little too generous, but effortful. There we go. Did I miss anything while I was away? Okay, so we are done with 400. I'm not going to do 600. I'm not going to do every one of these in order, so we'll put these down. Alright, so next up is 800. Let's give 800 a try. It's so funny, like, if you touch wood, like carpentry sandpaper, it's got, like, big rocks on it. You can look at it and see the sand. This stuff is beautiful. Like, I don't know. That looks like nothing. Anyway, it's such fine grit. It's so different. It's pretty cool. So, alright. So, back into the drink. I'm interested to see, after this initial sanding, how much I can really tell the differences between the grits. So let's say if I can't tell the difference, I'll stop in 10 minutes. So my time right now is 2:13. So at 2:23, if I don't see any difference, I'll just move on to the next one. Because I'm sure it's making a difference, but how obvious is it? I don't know. Potentially super obvious. And the aluminum polish I got is for automotive work. So if you're doing like restoration or detailing on a car or boat, you use the stuff I bought. So. There's a lot of stuff that I've used that's meant for boat maintenance, but is actually good for like lots of other stuff. Acrylic polish being the last one I used. Oh man, acrylic polish. So for any educators out there, I don't know if you've ever either had in your classroom or seen at like museums or have as a resource where there's like a bug or like the life cycle of a bug or something encased in a block of like clear plastic. So it's like a big acrylic block with a bug in it. And these are great. It's a way to have a preserved, delicate specimen that can be handed to children of all ages, and they are not going to destroy the bug, probably. Or, I mean, heck, if you've ever seen the, like, paperweights that they sell at gas stations out west that have, like, a tarantula in it, or a, scorpion. Same process, just different audience. The Nature Museum had a bunch of those, and they were just abused. They had been through years and years and years of very excited visitors. And so the acrylic had started to yellow. So all of them were yellow, kind of a gold amber yellow. And they were chipped and scratched, and like you could hardly see the bugs inside them because they were just so loved. They were really well used, and that's good. And we discovered that you just buy this boat acrylic polish that normally people would use to like clean their lights and other areas, and you can polish those blocks, and oh my gosh, it was amazing. It's like cleaning windows. Suddenly you could see every detail. And that was one of those therapeutic tasks that I just made available to my volunteers. I was like, here's how you do it. You just follow the instructions on the bottles. And you use progressively finer polish, to polish these up. Anybody who wants to do it can. And people would request it. Can I polish acrylic today? Boy, howdy, yes you can. It was great. The education team lost it when they saw the first batch. It was great. We had this particularly loved bunch of these specimens that were the life cycle of a monarch butterfly. And so you had blocks that contained, I think they did caterpillar chrysalis adult, no. The adults were pinned. So the blocks were just caterpillar chrysalis. I think there was, the eggs are so tiny, I think there was like one example of the eggs. And then for the adults, you pin them dry, so they were in a different sort of thing. But you had these caterpillars and chrysalids in these little discs of acrylic, and that was one of the main workshops that the Nature Museum did. And so, like, thousands of kids a year would mess around with these tablets. And then, of course, when you're done, you just chuck them in a bin, so they're all clattering against each other in the bin. And they were so cloudy. It was like a dream image of a caterpillar, you know. Not really useful for looking for details. And we fixed them. It was good. I think this is doing something. It's not as obvious as the first round, and I didn't think it was going to be. Yeah, so like I know something's happening because the grit's coming off, and I can kind of tell. Man, yeah, the crack is looking better, but definitely not as profound as the first round. Yeah. It just looks like a ball of metal. Which, let's be clear, it's a ball of metal. But I don't usually think of aluminum foil as being metal. Like, that's silly. Of course it is. But, like, my knee-jerk reaction, my mental image when I think of metal is like a chunk, like an ingot of metal or a metal pole or something really hefty. And aluminum foil is, of course, not those things. Until you whack it with a hammer for 3 hours. 2.5 hours of whacking. Give or take. I just heard my moderator sneeze, so God bless you. To your good health. That's continuously great. So something that I do find myself missing from the museum, but of course I can do in my own home, is just all the general problem solving, like trying to polish acrylic and stuff. It was really fun, because when you're part of a small museum, it's kind of all hands on deck. You know, I'd imagine, I do not know, I'd imagine if you're someplace like the Field Museum or MSI, or the American Museum of Natural History, things like that, there's so many people in distinct departments that you don't overlap too much. But Nature Museum only had, during regular times, only had like between 60 and 70 staff. It was not that big. Or should I say the Chicago Academy of Sciences. And so you ended up, you know, helping people out a lot. And it's actually really great to go across departments and, you know, hey, I know you have this skill, can you help out? And so it was a lot of fun to kind of problem solve together. And do things like, hey, did you know that we can polish acrylic? You know, and so my lab did mostly taxidermy, but every once in a while we had some sort of weird thing where here's this educational tool, or here's a element from an exhibit, or things like that needs some sort of repair. And how do you do it? And it was kind of fun. I once got to create a fake nest for peregrine falcon eggs. And for those who don't know about the nesting habit of the peregrine falcon, because isn't that all of us, They don't build nests. They nest on what's called a scrape. And so these are cliff-dwelling birds. And so they would look for a nice cliff face with a bit of a shelf on it, pop some eggs on the bare rock, and call that good. They'd scrape things aside. So if there's a bunch of loose rocks, they just move them around until there's a bit there, and they pop their eggs on that. And so in Chicago, the cliffs are high-rises. Oh yeah, they're super low-maintenance nests. Peregrines don't have time for that. In Chicago, the cliffs are made out of high-rise, and so they nest on people's balconies and weird ledges on the buildings, fancy stonework, stuff like that. And so they basically don't build a nest. How do you display the eggs in a case that represents a nest? And we went back and forth, because do you just put a piece of concrete in there? Then they roll around. You have to have something that is going to be functional, where the case can put up with people energetically thumping against it, looking at the cool things inside of it. But you still have to be representative of the scrape. And so I ended up making a nest out of basically plaster with a ton of sand mixed into it, which another word for that would be like concrete, but it looked sort of like really cheap soft concrete, and made it round just because it fit on the space really well. And I put it directly on a thing that it could dry to, so you could actually lift up the whole nest, but it looked like it was flush with its surface. And inside of it, and I decorated it. I had so much fun decorating it with like little pebbles, and I actually used used coffee grounds to give a dirt-like element that wouldn't particularly fade. So they had some pretty good parts. And my two biggest challenges were, you don't want to evenly distribute the flare. So I have all these little pebbles, and humans, when you want it to look natural, you try to have them evenly spaced out so they're not too close and clumpy. But of course, nature doesn't care. So in nature, if you're looking at a gravel walkway, or a walkway with some gravel on it, I guess, it's in clumps and groups. And so the best thing to do is actually group some of them together and have a big bald spot and whatever like that. It looked really good. And then my other problem was, I didn't want the eggs to be sitting directly on the hard substrate that I was putting in there. That would scratch them, and potentially the coffee grounds might have a little acid that could actually eat away at the eggshells. And they were from 1920, I think they were collected in like Alaska in 1920. So I didn't want to screw with them. So I actually ended up getting these little rings made out of wool. So a nice, stable, natural material that were hidden inside the nest. And so each egg actually sat on its own little wool ring, but you couldn't see it over the lip of the nest. I was really happy with that. As far as I know, that's still up at the museum. I have no idea. But so that's my one thing. I think that might be it. I think that is my one and only piece of work that's actually on display at the Chicago Academy of Sciences, is a nest, a fake nest that these eggs are sitting on. Because most of my stuff was for research. I didn't do the display stuff with any regularity. Alright, I'm entirely happy with this. I'm going to switch to the next grid. Plunk that guy down there. So this was 800. Alright, so 800 was this side. So again, I'm skipping 2, so I'm not going to use 1,000. So next up is 1,200. So let's go for 10 minutes, so it's 226. So we'll go to 236. A bunch of my volunteers actually have stuff on display, which I'm very proud of. People did some really good stuff. Some of it was restoration, and some of it was new pieces. So, those are still up. Those are pretty cool. Although it's really tough, because our institution was small enough that if you wanted to mount a specimen to be on display, you actually usually used the ones that were not nice, which seems really backwards. But you kept the specimens that were like in pristine condition and had data, so you knew where and when they came from and things like that. You use those for research. And so those went to the collection to be available for researchers to study. Something that was maybe a little off-peak, is missing information, so it's just in the back of the freezer, no one knows where it came from. That's the stuff you mount. With some exceptions. Obviously, if there's a real demand for, like, a showpiece, then you can do a showpiece. But we had some pretty funky little dudes that people managed to make into some pretty great display specimens. Because unsurprisingly, museums don't need a lot of new display specimens all that often. You just pull one out of the archive, so you're not, like, cycling through dead stuff all the time. A little creepy. Although one thing that we did need that never came up before the end of my career, we desperately needed a new muskrat. This poor little muskrat. We had a muskrat on display in a diorama of like dunes. So it's a really cute little animal. If anybody's never seen a muskrat, they are very round. So they're cute little fuzzballs that are aquatic rodents, and so they've got webbed feet, pretty significant tail, and they are quite round and quite fluffy. And we had this one on display for a long time, and they're not very big. They're really cute. And actually, it was a volunteer, unfortunately. So if she's watching this, I'm sorry I'm telling your story. Was helping the director of the collection vacuum the specimens, which, you don't do often. We did that maybe once a year. But, they get cobwebs, they get dusty. And vacuuming taxidermy is an art form unto itself. You have to be so careful. So you're not just, like, running the agitator across a deer or something like that. You'll take all the hair off. You'll just destroy it. What you have to do is you take, like, a hand vac or, like, a canister vacuum with a, flexi tube, and you put, like, a mesh over the end. So you actually rubber band a cover over it so that there's a mesh that will catch particles. And then you take a paintbrush, like a nice 2-inch paintbrush, and flick the dust towards the vacuum with just gentle upward sweeps. And so that way you're not going against the fur or feathers, and you're not roughing them up too much, but you can kind of pull the dust off that way without being too rough on them. And this system works absolutely most of the time, unless you really get unlucky. And in this particular case, this poor volunteer was vacuuming the muskrat, and she's and then you hear shoop, and its entire face came off and stuck to the vacuum. And this is not her fault. We learned that the specimen had dry rotted on the inside, and so the whole face just let go, and the original sculpture that was underneath of, like, clay to give it shape had crumbled. Like, the too much humidity difference had caused it to kind of expand and contract too many times, and it had crumbled away. So when the face fell off, there was a poof of clay dust, and so it actually lost the structure from under. Oh, it was terrible. And we kept that little monster in a box for a couple months, mostly feeling sad about it. No one really wanted to throw him away. But he was a display piece, which meant he had no data and no research value. So I do believe he got binned in the end. But he was a cute little guy. And we're on the lookout for a nice roadkill muskrat that we could replace him with at some point. I was even networking with people who might notice roadkill. I worked with the Chicago Bird Collision Monitors, who are a phenomenal group, who get up at terrible o'clock in the morning to go down into downtown Chicago and find birds that struck the windows in the wee hours when they're migrating, and rescue them, if possible. And unsurprisingly, they find a lot of dead ones too. But the Chicago Bird Collision Monitors will rescue anything. So if they come across an injured squirrel, they'll also rescue that. And they'll check roadkill, because sometimes an animal is laying there, but it actually can still be rescued. And so I was like, hey, anybody finds a muskrat in decent condition, can we have it? And it just never worked out. Yep, this continues to look cool. So I don't know how much the camera is going to pick up any differences at this point. Let me find the crack. Oh yeah, there it is. There's the cracks. Like, basically gone, right? Tiny bit of color coming through. You can see the lines, but it's basically gone. So, yeah, and then there's these rubbed areas. I can see like speckling. I think that's some of the undercolors. Oh, hey, not here. Good timing. So yeah, that's looking pretty great. So I'm gonna go for another couple minutes on this grade, but it continues to look better and better. So it's not as profound as it was before, but it is still pretty great. Not here, you just missed my story about sucking a dead muskrat's face off the vacuum. Which is, of course, the worst way to describe that story, but we'll just roll with that. Museum stories are all funny because you can give almost all of them an unsettling delivery like that. It's pretty great. I'm just thinking back to peregrine falcons now. I had one of my volunteers lived in a high-rise downtown, and she would often either get peregrine falcons nesting on her balcony or around by her neighbors. And a couple of years, they weren't the nesting balcony, they were the eating balcony, and so the adults would sit on her balcony ripping apart pigeons and leaving a horrible mess. And she was part of a big advocacy group within her building to, like, spread awareness and have people be willing to put up with having a really savage, nasty bird on their balcony for a month or two while they raise their young. So she was pretty cool. Because peregrines are beautiful. They look like they're wearing a mask. They're, these elite stunt fighter shaped birds. They're really cool. And they make the dumbest noises. Like, birds of prey, man. Birds of prey make stupid noises. And so you know how every Western or adventure movie, at some point, if you're looking out over the vista, they go, Kia! And there's this, like, bird call. That's a red-tailed hawk. It's not an eagle. It's not a falcon. It's a red-tailed hawk. The same guys who eat all of the roadkill along highways in the United States. That's the one. They're the only one that have a cool cry. Everything else goes or some variation there. And so if you hear a bunch of peregrine falcons having a conversation, it's like this madness, this weird peeping, chirping, bizarre sound. They're just the weirdest birds. So having them nest on your balcony is unfortunately kind of annoying. That plus the mess. But then you get peregrine falcons on your balcony. So, I would do it. I would let them stay. But I've never lived in one of the high-rises, so I can't speak to it too much. Alright, I'm switching to another grit. This is so scary. Peep, 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 I'm a predator. Alright, so this, is continuing to look really smooth. What an absolute difference. There's some visible cracks, there's a few divots, but for the most part, it just looks absolutely amazing. So, that's 1,200. I think then we're down to the last one. Oh no, one more round to go. So that was 12, so I'm skipping 15. I think that's 15. And so I'm going right to 2,000. Alright, so it is 236. At 246, I'll swap out again. So you guys were very lucky to hear me do imitation bird calls. I don't usually do most of them because you end up sounding really silly. I got to attend a lecture once with a gentleman whose specialty is identifying bird calls, and has written books about it, and that's the guy's whole jam. And This didn't actually happen, but I assumed that the entire question and answer session was going to be people in the audience going, okay, so I heard this bird once, and it went beep, 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 woo, or whatever. It's just people making weird noises at him. And I'm happy to say that didn't happen. People had questions about his travels and things like that, but I just had this idea that this poor birder was going to get weird with that. Can I do a kookaburra? No, I cannot. Hi, Bible. Good to see you. Check out how shiny this is. It's so good. We're down to the sanding phase, and it's like, it's such a satisfying little thing now. I think part of the reason I wouldn't do a kookaburra is I can kind of hear the sound in my head, but it's not so familiar that I could definitely get the intonation right. That's a good excuse. It makes me sound smart. There's some great bird calls. And I'm not great at identifying bird calls, so like if I'm out in the world, there's definitely some I know. And I've been really trying to learn them. But gosh, it's hard. And birding guides do tend to have descriptions of the bird's call written out. And like trying to convert bird song into text. Whoo, that's a challenge. People do it, and I think it helps, but it's really tough. Because, like, there's a lot of species of warblers and things like that that you can best tell them apart or even find them by their calls. Because they're so little and they're so secretive, but you'll be able to hear them peeping away. The other one I'm getting better at, I'd say, I'm not great, but I'm better at, is frog calls. Because the Nature Museum had a fantastic program. It's a community science program called Calling Frogs. So you see where this is going. And with the Calling Frogs science, what you did is you signed up to help, and you were assigned a walk. And it was actually like a geotagged walk in some natural area. And you would do that walk a couple times a year and listen. And you did it at night, because most frogs call when they're mating at night. And so you'd go and do this walk at night. You can use a flashlight. And, yeah, no, it's coming along, Bible. It's so cool. But, you do this walk, you listen for the frogs, and you write down who you hear. Because these frogs are so secretive, the chances of finding them to study them and get, like, accurate number counts is really low. But if you have people doing these walks and saying, okay, in this area I definitely heard this one frog, or actually I heard a whole bunch of them, you know, that gives you, and you have hundreds of people doing that, you actually get a really good distribution map of these different species of frogs. And so I've never done an official walk, but I did try to learn the songs so that I could help other people. And the best part about frog calls is the descriptions they had on the website for calling frogs. And it's just callingfrogs.org if anybody wants to pop over there. So like there's I think it's a leopard frog. It's described as sounding like a dying goat. It's pretty great. American toads are one of my favorite frog calls. I love the sound of American toads. But oh man, yeah, whale calls are a whole new world. But yeah, like it's fun once you start learning those things, because you go outside at night on a beautiful evening in like a area with some forest and it's lovely. But no, Viable, that's very kind of you. I am fat. So we'll say it's a very beneficial camera angle. Also, wow, the difference with this grit, like, there's no pits left at all. It's all like a uniform, kind of dull gray at this point. See how it's become really dull, which I find fascinating. And so this is where the polish, I think, is going to really pick it back up. You can see some of the cracks. There's our main area of cracks, is just gone. Yeah, what a change. This has been really pretty exceptional. When was I going to? Am I over time, or I still have a couple minutes to go? I've already forgotten. Let's go for a couple more minutes on this one. And then I've got one more level of grit after this. I almost don't know if I need it, but why not? I've got the sandpaper, I might as well play with it. My water is so mucky, too. I don't... Like, you guys can see this is now just opaque gray. Oh, it looks so good. I guess, unsurprisingly, this finer sandpaper is wearing out faster. The heftier stuff was heftier. Again, words of wisdom. Wow, yeah, this is such a difference. Foil ball challenge. It's challenging, but also really kind of worth it. And I was actually pretty happy before. Like, I almost could have stopped before and felt pretty successful, but this is so much better. I'm so glad I'm doing this sanding. Yeah, and unfortunately now I can really see the areas where I didn't hammer it into exactly a round shape, but it's okay. Ain't too mad. Oh yeah, this sandpaper is a lot less hefty than the other. You know, I'm gonna go ahead and swatch. Let's get to the last grit for this kind of amazing project. All right, 3,000. It doesn't even look like sandpaper. That just looks like a thin sheet of paper. But well, Viable, that's very kind of you. I unfortunately I have gotten so little exercise that I feel like I've just converted to some sort of marshmallow fluff. Like, all of my muscle tone just gone. It's been crazy. Like, staying indoors a lot and doing little projects indoors is not the same as running out in the museum and doing all the big projects I would do there. So, thank you for being kind. I definitely accept your compliment. Even if right now my self-esteem is a bit eroded. But... Alright. Wow, yeah, this is actually kind of making it shiny again. This is cool. Okay, so we'll go at max another 10 minutes. So it's 7:45. So I'm 7. What? No, 2:45 in the afternoon. Let's go to 2:50. Yeah, COVID body is a thing, and it means that you care about your community. So being a little soft and mushy right now is actually a sign of a caring individual who is looking out for the common good. I'm sticking with that. Just means I've been trying to be better about eating leafy greens and things like that. Ah, DL, good for you! Exactly, perfect. Good job. You had to practice, right? Get into shape for being the mushy, soft, loving person that we need right now. Yeah. It's tough because, like, COVID body is a thing, same as COVID cuts. So if you've cut your hair at home or had a friend, you know, your family member do it, it's because you care. So you might not have the best haircut ever, but it's because you're a good, caring member of your community. Good for you, you know. And yeah, I have been tracking this. I haven't particularly gained weight since all the shutdowns and everything. I have lost muscle. That's really been my main problem, is I have been converting slowly into some form of pudding. So. Not here, so you said in your meeting people were talking about how they're eating their feelings. Oh yeah. I have definitely, like, as much as I'm trying to eat lots of vegetables and make sure that I'm getting a variety of food, the baked goods are real, and it is good. So Viable, you said you did a COVID cut. You cut your hair from down to your torso to 5 centimeters and then fully shaved. Wow! That's gutsy. I don't think I would have the guts to cut that much off. Ooh. Yeah, like, I haven't cut my hair. I have had previous years where just life got past me and I didn't cut my hair for a whole year. So that's just what we're gonna do. It's fine, you know. It'll just continue to whatever. But I do miss getting it colored. I used to get the bottom, like, half or bottom third of my hair dyed some extravagant color. Viable, I don't know if I had my hair dyed the last time I saw you. It's been a minute, but I would often get green or red, and I do miss the colors. And I could probably do that at home. It hasn't come up. So rubbing this with this really fine grit sandpaper feels nice. Like, I don't know how much you can hear that, like, it feels soft. It feels extra smooth. It's really lovely. I've never used, what is this again? 3000? Yeah, 3000 grit sandpaper. My goodness. Okay, yeah, so Viable, that is my natural hair color. But when I get excuses, like for my sister's wedding and things like that, I usually go a bit extravagant and get some fun color in there. And I'm starting to get gray, and I'm getting gray hair in exactly where I want it. I'm getting the cool temple wings, so I could look like a supervillain. And so I don't want to dye that. I love that. But the grit level is over 3000. No, it's at exactly 3000. Take your Dragon Ball Z and go. This is so cool, you guys. Like, it's so smooth. Where's the crack? I think this is the old cracks. They're so hard to discern at this point. So there are some pits. There's some pits in it that are just too deep for any of this to get to, which is too bad, but I think George Clooney might be all gray, but yeah, he started out with the cool wings. Pseudonym, good catch. But like, so many supervillains and stuff have the cool wings. You know, I'm down for that. But the bottom of my hair, I'm always happy to dye, because that part... And then it looks good, because if you have 2 feet of roots, it doesn't look like you need to dye your hair anytime soon. Whereas if you have 2 inches, you look kind of silly. I don't know, some people pull it off, but I don't think I am one of those. Okay. This is definitely almost wrapped up. This is near the end. So I'm going to go over my usual 3 o'clock because I want to, Oh yeah! Mr. Fantastic is a fantastic... Ooh, I didn't do that on purpose, but let's say I did example of that type of graying. You know what, I'm gonna call this done because I want to get to the polish without waiting too long. But it's exquisite. Like, I'm so happy with this, so... Ugh. Oh man, I got some water in here, but my hands are a little pruny now. Ugh. So that water is gross. Look at that. That's nasty. That is a lot of shavings and ick that I get to get rid of. So let me put that off to the side for right now. Ugh. Although I might need that for the polish. Ooh, I've got some drips. Do that in a minute. Okay, so let's look at my... Okay. So apparently there is no shine like Mother's. Cool. Okay, directions. Finish should be clean, dry, and cool. Okay, so I have to dry off my ball. So let's just do that first. One moment. So it's definitely cool. I guess it's clean. Oh, this feels so cool. Wow, this is neat. What a immense difference. Wow. Okay, so I had looked up a couple different ways to do the foil ball challenge, and one of the first ones I looked up was like, oh, don't bother sanding it. That sounds like a lot of time, and who cares? You're going to polish it. No, they were wrong. I'm, I'm just saying it. How heavy would I say it is? Okay, I'm going to guess that this is like 8 ounces. Let's see. Let me go get a scale, because now you've got me curious. Crikey. I don't know, maybe not 8 ounces. I might be a little too high there. All right, so I've got that. It's about as, so you guys can see it's at 0, best I can. Oh wow, I vastly overestimated that. Looks like we're at 50 grams or 2 ounces. So, yeah, so it's actually way lighter, because the perception is crazy, because of course it hasn't changed weight at all the whole time I've been doing this, but it keeps feeling heavier and heavier because it's denser. And so my perception is really off. So there, it's only 2 ounces or 50 grams. And actually, I want to know how much the diameter has changed. So, oh, it's so satisfying. I love this. Not much. So the sanding, of course, did take some off of it, but I'm still sitting here at 44. So we're still at 44 millimeters. So that didn't change. Oh, this is so satisfying. Okay. So, yeah, it almost feels lighter now than it did, which of course is absolutely not true. I wonder if the smoothness of it has changed my perception. I don't know, it's wacky. Okay, so there's that. Alright. Finish should be clean, dry, and cool. Close enough, I think. Apply a small amount of polish to a soft, clean microfiber, terry cloth, buffer pad, or suitable applicator. So basically not a paper towel, is what they're saying there. Polish metal surface until a black residue appears. Hard rubbing is not necessary. Work black residue in all directions, adding small amounts of polish as needed. Use sparingly. Okay. Buff off residue with a clean microfiber or terry cloth prior to polish drying. Turn towel frequently for best buffing. Alright, so it sounds like I need 2 little towels. So, it's a little big for a ping pong ball. It's more like a golf ball, I would say. So I'm actually going to put up my AFK message while I go dig for the appropriate cloths I'm going to need for this. So hang out for a minute until I get all of this stuff. But we're in endgame. I mean, that already looks nothing like the original foil ball. I'm real happy. So I will be back in just a minute. Okay. Ugh. So I've changed camera views so I can sit down. I hope you all forgive me, but it's a lot of standing. And, because I should be able to do this without too huge of a mess. I usually put a bigger protective cover on my work surface, but I think I can get away with this. Oh, hi, Rumi. There it is. Rumi has decided to supervise. Right, buddy? My cats always start waking up in the afternoon, so Rumi is here to make sure that this is going well. Okay. Oh, and Festivus is here too. Alright, so the gang's all here. Okie dokie. So I have my ball. It's amazing. Do I have a rubber band? Here, hold on. Wait, hold on. I want to grab a rubber band. Okay. So the rubber band, we'll just keep that from escaping. So that gives me a little bit of not having to chase it all over the floor. So I actually grabbed 3 cloths, the best ones I've got right now. I have a t-shirt sleeve, I have a piece of an old sweatshirt, and I have a microfiber cloth. So I figured the microfiber cloth I'll save for the end, for the actual, like, nice polishing. I might start with the t-shirt sleeve. And yeah, I mean, those are the rags I have in my house, are just, you know, old clothes that are too gross to donate. So if I have something nice, I'll donate that to some local group, but if it's like covered in sweat stains or paint or something like that, just cut it up. Keep the good parts. Good parts. Okay, so to review, apply a small amount of finish to a soft, clean microfiber terry cloth buffer pad or sustainable applicator. Good enough. Polish metal surface until black residue appears, and rub that black residue in all directions. Use sparingly. Ooh, it's kind of got a nice smell. Cool. Alright, so that's just a smidgy. Set that to the side. So I wonder if the black residue is because it has actually got grit in it and it's pulling up some of the aluminum, or if it's a chemical reaction. I don't really know a lot about metal polishes. Okay, it's starting. You can kind of see there's it's gray on gray, but there is a black schmutz some sort on here. Oh, it feels nice to run. It's so smooth. What a difference. Oh my gosh. This is so... Oh, there we go. You can really tell that it's turning black now. How weird. What a strange process this is. Okay, so I think that's everywhere now. What will I do with the aluminum water? I actually haven't done the research on that. I believe I can just put that down the drain. Potions. Well, obviously, yes. I don't think it'll hurt the plumbing. We don't use... This is city water. This is not, like a biological system, so I don't believe that the aluminum will harm it. But I did realize I hadn't actually done that research, so I'm going to double check that before I put it down a drain. But I don't believe it will harm my plumbing or the municipal water supply. I'm sure they've seen worse. But yeah, a potion made out of aluminum dust and elbow grease does seem like it would be some sort of ingredient for something cool. Okay, so apply in all directions. Add small amounts of polish as needed. Use sparingly Buff off residue with a clean microfiber cloth. Okay, so I don't really, it doesn't say how, yeah, I just have to look it up. I don't know how long I'm supposed to do this for, so I'm just, here, we'll give it 2 more minutes. It's 3:05 right now, let's go to 3:07. Here, I want to add a little bit more polish. I've got this entire container with no other specific plans. So let's just, boop, get a smidgy more. Actually looks like a ton there. Just a little bit. I mean, now, obviously, I'm just going to be looking for aluminum I can polish. Kind of like the joke, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Well, when you have aluminum polish, everything looks like dull aluminum, obviously. Go polish my car. Since my car is mostly made of plastic, I think that would be the radio aerial and, like, the exhaust. So, does it feel gritty? No, it feels like toothpaste. Or even softer than toothpaste. Yeah, no, there's not an obvious grit to this. I think they assume that once you're at this point, you're probably not scouring. So. Wow, that's so interesting. Okay. So there's definitely the cracks are still really evident. I'm gonna have such shiny Pepsi cans, absolutely. Not here. It smells kind of nice. It smells like a cleaner. It's very light. It's maybe a little citrusy. Ooh, oh, guys. Ooh. Okay, we've done it. I'll use a clean part of this, and then we'll use the buff cloth. Oh my gosh, this is so different. Oh my gosh, this is so different. Oh, it's like magic. Okay, so that already, like, that's pretty cool. Let me set this guy aside. I'm going to take off my gloves because I don't want to transfer what's left on those. Let's use the microfiber cloth. Look at that! It's a little mirror finished ball. And you can still see those cracks. There's definitely that kind of wound in that area, but wow. Wow, okay, I obviously did this foil ball challenge because I wanted it to work out, you know, of course. Oh, it's incredible! Wow. Yeah, and so, like, I think some of these little bits are where I actually wore through to, like, a different layer of the, foil. But this is, and yeah, I'm actually kind of glad that these cracks from the layering stayed, because there's a story there. Like, I know why that was the case. That's absurd! That's absolutely absurd. I can't dent it with my nail. I can a little bit if I really push. I can dent it with a fingernail. So it's still, like, I wouldn't want to drop this on the floor. Calvin is correct. This is, in fact, a ball. Good job, you 2-year-old genius. He's no longer a burrito. I think I'm gonna... Let's polish it just a little bit more. Let's see if I can bring this up one more level. I bet not. I bet this is... I know, it's good enough. You know what? No, I should probably just stop. I can rest on my laurels, people. This is amazing. Wow. Wow. I'm just gonna keep saying wow and being happy. Wow. So silly. Okay, so there it is. The foil ball challenge. If you do hours of work. Calvin, correct. Yeah, absolutely. Good job, buddy. Wow. I should stop saying that at some point, but I'm so happy. I can definitely see places I could have kept hammering, or I could have kept polishing with some of the higher levels of grit. There's, I don't know how well you guys can see them. There's some craters. It's clearly not 100% round, things like that, but it's so pretty, and it's so satisfying to hold. Ah, So if anybody gets, like, serious bored and wants to try an interesting, whimsical, long-term project... So this was... One previous stream was 2 hours, and this one is 2 hours and 10 minutes. So 4 hours of work. I didn't do anything off-stream other than, like, when I originally had the foil ball, I guess I crunched it a little bit. And, of course, created the foil ball 20 to 30 years ago. But how absolutely satisfying. And there's some, like, this area is a little cloudy compared to, like, some of the high chrome areas. But to throw it into the ground, it would crunch. It's a very soft metal, so yeah, I will not be doing that. I will be treasuring this. I do have a little stand, so there it is. It has a display mount. Yeah. Thank you, everybody who survived all the hammering. Obviously, the 2-year-old went to sleep, and I respect that. But what a fun, wacky little thing. So this is what we learned from the internet. You know, thank you, people of Japan, for coming up with this and making it go viral. That's entirely satisfying. And it was a lot of work, but I think doing it, chatting with everybody was great. Like, if I was doing this just by myself in my workshop, I probably would have given up. But thanks for talking me through this, you guys. This was fun. So, alright. This, I consider the challenge completed. I feel really good about that. And so I think probably next on the list for next week is I have some fun little toy, like, kits that a friend of mine sent me. I'll probably work on those and do some kind of light and fluffy things before picking up another really big long-term project like this guy. But if anybody has any other ideas for weird stuff I can work on, let me know. I have a list. I have to get my Discord up at some point so that people can give me ideas. But don't worry, I have a couple things in the wings I'm planning on doing. But I'm so happy. I can't believe how cool this came out. Oh my gosh. Alright. Then I'm gonna stop going on at length and let y'all have your day. I am planning on being on Saturday doing taxidermy, so anybody who's interested in that, I'm hopefully going to be wrapping up that sheep head enough that I can put it into a bin and degrease it. And then onward from there. So thanks everybody for hanging out with me. This was great. I'm entirely happy with how this project worked out. It's amazing. Thanks for hanging with me, and I will catch y'all next time. Bye. Take care.